All right, the purpose of this demonstration is to show you the proper way to create a dashboard using PerformancePoint content parts utilizing Sharepoint Designer. So the first thing I have up here I'm going to show you, let me drop these on down. I've got my Sharepoint site on up, and just for review, if I look over my PerformancePoint content list, then I can pull that on down. You'll see I do have a dashboard down here, Student Demo 1. All right, now if I go over to Dashboards, I have a folder, and here is Student Demo 1, page 1, right here. Remember, they're stored in two different locations. The definition is stored down in here as a PerformancePoint content type, which is a collection of metadata. And then up here in Dashboards, it's stored as a Webpart page so that it can be rendered within the browser. So if we go down here and take a look at this, I'm going to pull down my selection menu here, and I'm going to edit in Sharepoint Designer. And I already have that up, so you don't have to sit around forever looking at it. So now I have have it on open here, and what I've done down here is let me fix this. Let me go through and delete that. Now I'm going to take a section down in here. I'm going to insert, just do a modification. I want to insert a web part. Let me go into just design view so it's a little cleaner for you. I'm going to insert a web part here, and it really doesn't matter what kind of a web part. I just want to show you that I'm doing a modification down here. So let's take let's go up top and take a really easy little thing down in here, and we're going to come in and we'll look at a XML Viewer. All right, so just have this little XML Viewer down here, and I've inserted that web part. Now if I come through and I preview it in the browser, it'll ask me to save. I'm going to say, yeah, go ahead and save the changes down here. Here's this little web part that was edited, and as you can see, I could edit the web part right here and come through and make changes, etc. The idea here is to show you that this web part was added into this dashboard. All right, so now let's just drop out, let's close the browser and switch over to Dashboard Designer. And now we've got Student Demo up in here, and what I want to do is I'm going to right click Student Demo up here, and I have done no changes, but I can still right click on it, and I'm going to say Deploy to SharePoint. Alright, and now she just deployed out to SharePoint. Now notice that immediately as it deployed it out to SharePoint, the web part that we added is gone. So let's come in and pick that out, close that on in, and now let's go in again. And if I pulled this on down and fired that on up into SharePoint, into a SharePoint Designer, you'd see that web part is gone because the definition was written in it. So if we come back over into the Designer down here, it's here because it remained in the page in the Designer. Now the proper way to do this is if I take the site and if I go to File and I want to create a new web part page, and we'll just pick a template. That sounds fine, and I'll name it Dashboard Made with SPD, and we'll say OK. And I've got a number of web parts down in here. Now I'm going to go in and add some web parts. I'm going to go in and I'm going to insert, and if I pull this down in here, I'm going to pull that down, and I'll locate a PerformancePoint content web part. Here we are. Let's go with a scorecard. And now let's actually set the web part properties. Now this is a little odd, if you would. There's a SharePoint throws an error here every time. So if I drill on in my PerformancePoint content list, and if I just want to look at scorecards, then that's my only scorecard. And if I select it, notice the URL down at the bottom, and I'm going to say OK. All right. And now when I come down there and say OK, I'll throw an error. Blah, blah, blah. It's not a valid web part. And the problem you have here is, for some reason, some rather irritating reason, SharePoint does this. It puts in the wrong URL. So we'll just copy this in. And now I'll come back over and paste it. And now I'll tell it OK. And it liked that. So now let's go in and preview this in the browser. Yeah, save it, save it. And now I have a scorecard up here in a ASPX page. that we saved down there. So now this ASPX page, I could come through and modify again and again within SharePoint Designer. And if I went back over into Dashboard Designer and made any changes within a dashboard over in Dashboard Designer, then I would not run into those issues. But the issue you would run into here, let me close this out. The issue you would run into is back on your site, if you want your dashboards to be maintained as definitions, as PerformancePoint content, right, which has some huge advantages to it, because you see I can do this versioning history and compliance and managing permissions, etc., then you're going to lose that. You also get into the situation of where you can come through and now you have two different tools that you're going to work with. So, you know, you have to really come through and decide how it is you want to manage that.